3 sets of 6 to 8 reps on the pendulum squat. This was easily my #1 quad builder for my year-long experiment.
Hell yeah, bro. Pendulum squat, that is, in my opinion, the best squat variation. What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the exact leg workout Jeff Nippard followed for his 1-year transformation. Spoiler alert, it is very similar to the leg day that I do, so can't wait. Already watched the video. Let's get into it.
All year, I kicked off this leg workout with lying leg curls. Putting them first was an absolute game changer for how my knees feel when I squat. By doing them first, not only do you prioritize your hamstrings, which is a muscle that a lot of bros neglect, but you also get your knees and soft tissues nice and warmed up for the rest of the workout. You may be surprised at just how much better your squats will feel when your posterior chain is slightly activated going into them.
This is something that I actually heard of or learned first from Will Tennyson. I remember when he made like a showing how he escaped like chicken legs or whatever. He was doing a video and he always said he warms up or he always starts your hamstrings first.
I don't know what it is. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about the human anatomy. It will just feel a whole lot better. So start with your hamstrings.
And for me, I always just like to do the big compound lift first, so I go straight into squats. But I have actually been playing around with recently, like allowing, like warming up, like in between sets of squats, I'll just do some warm-ups with the leg curls, and it really does make my knees feel a lot better. I don't have the greatest knees, like, I don't know, genetics for like how your knees feel or whatever when you squat. But I definitely notice that if I do a warm-up kind of with like leg curls, it definitely takes some strain off my knees. Like sometimes after a set of squats, like they'll feel a little bit tender, but if I do leg curls beforehand, it won't. I have no idea on the science behind that, but that is definitely something that I would recommend many people try if you're experiencing knee pain doing squats. I think that's amazing. I don't know why it freaking works, but it actually does.
And even though this study did show better hamstrings growth with the seated leg curl, there is another big muscle in your legs called the sartorius, and it actually grew better with lying leg curls.
Okay, gotta be 100% honest here. I didn't even know how I didn't even know, before watching this video, I didn't even know how the sartorius muscle was trained or anything. This is the first time I found out, okay, you train it when you do leg curls like that. And I think that's really interesting that it's more stretched when you're lying down. So I've always been under the impression, yeah, okay, the study came out, seated leg curls are better for hamstring growth, and that seems to be the case, but they're not as good for the sartorius muscle. And in my opinion, the sartorius muscle makes the leg look very aesthetic. I know Wesley Vissers, he doesn't have the biggest legs in the world, but he's got the sartorius muscle looks absolutely sick, and it pops right out. I think it just makes the leg look really complete. If you got those quads, but then the sartorius muscle doesn't pop out, I don't know. I just feel like you're missing something there, and it looks a little weird, like kind of washed out or whatever. I don't know. But that is definitely something to consider and something I didn't even know about, and I think that's really interesting. So probably better to include the lying and seated hamstring curl variations.
This is where the real heavy overloading starts. 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps on the pendulum squat. This was easily my #1 quad builder for my year-long experiment. And of course, it's not just for the quads. Like any squat, it'll also smash the glutes and the adductor muscles of the inner thighs. Now, obviously, not every gym has a pendulum squat machine, so if you don't have one, you can swap it out for another squat variation.
Hell yeah, bro. Pendulum squat, that is, in my opinion, the best squat variation. I don't know, for me anyway, it just feels freaking fantastic. I don't know, and it forces you to sink your ass in the ground when I'm doing this. If you guys see me doing this, I actually just did a leg day today. Obviously, I started off with the pendulum squat. It forces you to sink your ass to the ground. You get such a good range of motion, and it's harder in the stretch position, which is probably better for hypertrophy. So I mean, personally, I don't think people give this exercise enough recognition, probably because it's not a very common machine to have in a gym. Most gyms just have a hack squat, so that kind of gets all the glory. But I think, and Jeff definitely thinks, pendulum squat feels better. I love it that this is the exercise he chose to show because it's literally my favorite quad builder.
Now, when it comes to hamstrings growth, I do think the tried and true Romanian deadlift made the biggest difference for me this year. Obviously, a common theme I followed all year was choosing exercises that I could add a little weight to from week to week. So if you start your program doing 2 plates per side for 6 hard reps, and you end your program doing 3 plates per side for 6 hard reps, your glutes and hamstrings will be bigger.
And barbell RDL, I mean, I know it looks like, I know the title of my video, it's triggering you guys, Jeff Nippard copied me, but literally, if you look at any of my freaking, obviously I'm just kidding though, he didn't actually copy me, bro doesn't even know who I am. If anything, I copied him. But if you look at all my leg days, basically since I've been uploading videos on this channel, I've always included, I think there was maybe a couple workouts where I did not include a barbell RDL because I think the exercise is fantastic. Now, one thing I will say though with Jeff is with his leg training anyway, with the compounds, he's going for very low reps, like 6 to 8, and I think that's fine. I just think the injury risk is a little bit higher there. I would like to see higher repetitions. Anyway, that's how I like to train, like on the pendulum squat. I mean, I will do lower reps, like 6 to 9, but I always start with sets for like 15 to 12, and same with the RDL, around like that 13 to 15 rep range. But again, every rep range, if you push it hard enough, up until like 30 plus reps, or like anywhere lower than 3, anywhere in the range from like 4 to 30 can build muscle equally, as long as you're getting in enough time under tension and you're pushing hard. So I'm very happy that he chose to talk about the RDL. The only thing I will say is definitely don't skip your leg curls, because the RDL will only train 3 out of the 4 heads of the hamstring, because only 3 heads cross the hip joint. So definitely I would include the RDL because it smashes the hamstrings and glutes, but also make sure to have that leg curl, but he's got that covered, so no biggie there.
Now, the most common mistake I see on the Romanian deadlift is actually overreaching at the bottom. A lot of people chase extra range of motion by collapsing their spine and letting their back round a lot, or by letting the bar drift too far out in front. Instead, you want to keep your back tight, keep the bar in close to your body, and only lower it as far as you comfortably can while maintaining a neutral spine and keeping tension on your hamstrings.
RDL as well, it's a very difficult exercise for beginners. I know when I used to first start doing it, I was almost mimicking, it was almost like I was doing a deadlift, and I do think that's how many people actually, start doing it. If they do an RDL, they accidentally mimic like a deadlift form, and they kind of squat down and bend their knees, but that's not what you really want. You want to be hinging at your hips. I think a little knee bend is definitely necessary, but if you start bending your knee too much, then you're just basically turning it into a half squat or a deadlift, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to work the hamstrings and the glutes more, so we just you want just to move your hips back without bending a lot of knee bend to really stretch the hamstrings. And another thing I like it that he brought up is to not let the bar drift forward and stuff, because that's going to engage the lower back, and a lot of beginners or whatever, that's their main gripe with RDLs, is they don't actually feel it in their hamstrings and glutes, and then just feel it in their lower back, and that's because they're drifting the bar forward. So very happy to see Jeff. He gave corrections on a lot of exercises. I'm just going over this one because I think it's the most common one that people make mistakes on. So great to see. Love this so far.
The best isolation exercise for the quads is, of course, the leg extension. and it complements the compound pendulum squat that we did earlier very nicely because it actually hits the big, long rectus femoris head of the quads harder than any squat variation will. That's because the rectus femoris crosses both the hip joint and the knee joint, so it actually won't change length much on a squat because your knees and hips are both moving. However, on a leg extension, your hips are fixed, which means the rectus femoris will actually stretch and squeeze.
And the leg extension, love this exercise. I always do leg extensions every single leg workout, and it's for that exact reason that Jeff explained. I first learned about the rectus femoris head, it doesn't get as stretched on a squat because your hips and your knees are moving. So ever since I learned that from Jeff Nippard, I've always included leg extensions on every single leg day I've had. So I'd always have I basically have basically on almost every body part I do, I'll do for quads, back, chest, and like hamstrings and stuff, I'll have one like compound lift. So for my quads, for example, it will be squats, and then I'll have an isolation exercise. So then that will be leg extensions, or on hamstrings, I'll have an RDL as my compound for the hamstrings, and then I'd have an isolation exercise like the seated leg curl. So I always include leg extensions. I think it's a great exercise, and he discusses how you should have the seat as far back as possible to get that bigger stretch in the rec fem. So great stuff. Freaking love it, because it's literally the leg workout that I do every day, and it's literally basically the one that I do in the morning. I did it this morning. The only difference really is the exercise order, and I also like to do antagonistic training when I do the leg extensions and hamstring curls, but Jeff obviously likes to start with the hamstring curls just to warm up his knees for squats, which I think is a great thing. And actually this leg day I was actually feeling some knee discomfort on the squats, so I did my set of squats. I'm like, my knees don't feel that good, and then I just did a couple warm-up sets on the seated leg curl, and then I finished my squats, and it felt amazing. So great stuff here.
All the lower body muscles, the one most responsible for really making it obvious that you lift, whether you're a man or a woman, is the glutes. So we're gonna hop into some glute isolation work on the hip abduction machine next.
So ever since Jeff Nippard posted his like glute tier list and stuff, I honestly had no idea that the glutes had like 3 heads. I always just heard glute max and thought, that's the glutes. It's just the glute max. But I never knew about the glute medius and minimus. So ever since then, I have been doing like cable hip abductions to target them more. But honestly, I don't think that's really necessary. Like if you're doing pendulum squat and RDLs, I think regardless, your glutes are gonna get absolutely smashed. Yes, the glute max is the primary. When you do the hip abductions, it's more so the glute medius and minimus. But I mean, they're still getting worked on the RDLs and squats. So as a guy, honestly, I don't think you really need to do like hip abductions, but I do them because I'm a maximalist and I want to get the growth out of every freaking muscle. So I do it, but I don't think it's really necessary for the majority of you if you're doing squats and RDLs and so on.
Okay, and at this point in the workout, you'll probably want to skip calves, but I promise you, that is the main reason they're not growing. So find a good straight leg calf raise that you feel well and push it hard for 8 to 10 reps, emphasizing the deep, stretched part of the range of motion. If calves are a priority for you, you could even put them first in the workout so you're less tempted to skip them.
Okay, so love the standing calf raise. I think it's great. The only thing I would say is in my opinion, I think calves respond better to higher rep work. Calves predominantly have slower twitch muscle fibers, so I would more so veer to the rep range of 10 to 20. Jeff says 8 to 10, which again, I think is completely fine. This is just my opinion, guys. Remember, I'm the 16-year-old idiot here, and Jeff is the science expert, so what do I know? But whenever I do standing calf raises, I always do it in that like 10 to 20 rep range, even like 15 to 25, somewhere in there. But that's just me. That gets the burn going. And I also, because I know he even says it, a lot of people, you know, they want to skip calves, they don't want to do it or whatever. This is what I would recommend. Do antagonistic training with your calves. I mean, okay, well, I guess no one really trains their tibials. I think it's called the tibials, the muscle on the front here, right there. I don't remember exactly what it's called. But like Super said it was something. So like whenever I do calves, I actually have started doing my calves separate to my actual leg day, and I'll actually alternate my calf work with my shoulder work. So like if I'm doing a set of lateral raises, I'll be done with that, and then I go right to the calves, so it doesn't really eat into as much time, and I'm still getting in a lot of calf work. And again, real stubborn muscle. My calves are dog shit, but I'm really trying to bring them up. And I would like it that he says do the standing calf raise, because then again, the gastrocnemius is stretched more. So great stuff there, Jeff. These are basically the exercises I do in my leg training all the time, and I think they're freaking fantastic. Thank you, Jeff, for teaching me all this stuff. But that's gonna wrap up the video, guys. If you have enjoyed, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.